There is a strange freedom in silence, a kind of unshakable peace in not having to explain yourself to the world. We live in a time where sharing every detail of our lives has become a badge of authenticity, but have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped? If you no longer told everyone your plans, your pain, your dreams, your decisions, your progress, would the world stop turning? Or would you finally start listening to your own voice instead of the noise around you? Today, I want to tell you something that will save your energy, protect your peace, and elevate your strength. Stop telling everyone what happens in your life, because not everyone who listens cares. Not everyone who smiles supports, and not everything sacred is meant to be shared. Let's journey together through 5 powerful ways that will help you understand why your silence can be your greatest strength and your privacy, your ultimate power. Your dreams are not public property. There are dreams that whisper to you in the silence of the night, not because they are timid, but because they trust you enough to reveal themselves in the stillness of your soul. These dreams are sacred. They are not designed for public display or approval. They are born to be protected, nurtured, and whispered back to life by your faith alone. You don't need the world to echo your dreams. You need to echo your belief in them. The moment you place your dreams in someone else's hands, you risk them being dropped, dismissed, or distorted. People don't always reject your dream because it's flawed sometimes. They reject it because it's too big for their vision, too brave for their fear, too bold for their limitations. They project their doubts as if they were mirrors, hoping you'll see your reflection in their restrictions. When you tell everyone your dream, you invite energy both positive and negative. Not everyone who hears it will honor it. Some will envy, some will compare, some will question why you have the audacity to think differently, to reach higher, to want more. And if you are not strong enough, their questions will become your hesitation. Their shadows will cover your light. Your dreams don't require noise to grow, they require nurturing. Just like a seed doesn't scream while becoming a tree, your dream doesn't need to be announced before it's ready. It needs time in the dark, time in the soil, time away from judgment. Let your actions speak what your mouth never needs to. Let your results announce what your voice kept hidden. So many people quit on their dreams, not because the dream wasn't beautiful, but because the world around them wasn't. They allowed negativity to poison their passion. They allowed discouragement to dismantle their direction. They gave up not because they didn't believe, but because they wanted someone else to believe more than they believed in themselves. There is a profound power in being quiet about what sets your heart on fire. When you stop looking for applause, you start clapping for yourself. When you stop waiting for approval, you start walking with purpose. And when you stop sharing too soon, you start building with more strength. Silence gives you the stamina to endure. Your dream isn't a public campaign, it's a private mission. And just because it's private doesn't mean it's small. It means it's sacred. It means you honor its growth more than the glory. It means you understand the value of building something solid in silence before exposing it to the winds of the world. People may think you're quiet because you're unsure. Let them. Let them misunderstand. Let them assume. Because silence isn't a sign of doubt, it's a symbol of depth. It says, I am working, I am building, I am creating. And I don't need your eyes to validate what my soul already knows is worthy. Sometimes the most brilliant stories are written in invisible ink. You don't need to show the draft of your masterpiece to everyone. Wait until it's complete. Wait until it's strong enough to stand on its own. Until then, be its protector. Be its guardian. Be the one who chooses privacy over performance. When you share your dreams too early, they become targets. They become exposed to sabotage, intentional and unintentional. Jealousy doesn't always show up in loud voices. Sometimes it comes disguised as advice. It comes dressed in concern, masked in sarcasm, or veiled in indifference. Let your dream be your secret garden. Water it with discipline, feed it with faith, prune it with self-awareness, and when the time comes, it will bloom so loudly that even your silence will sound like thunder. And the beauty of it? You won't have to say a word. Your strength lies in the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove anything. I am working in the shadows because I believe in the light that's coming. I don't owe anyone a preview of my becoming. Not everyone has the heart to hold your dreams. Not everyone has the eyes to see your vision. So why would you hand it over to those who were never meant to carry it? Trust yourself enough to keep it to yourself. You owe no one an explanation for the dreams that live inside you. You owe them action. You owe them growth. You owe them the quiet promise that says, I will not shout about this. I will show you when it's done. There is something poetic about silence. It's the quiet thread that binds courage to discipline. It says, I trust the process more than I trust the praise. And in that trust, your dreams finally find the space to breathe. Your pain deserves healing. Not exposure pain is not meant to be posted. It is not designed for public dissection. Pain is deeply personal. It speaks in the language of silence, not spectacle. It doesn't ask for applause. It asks for space. And yet, we live in a world that rewards vulnerability only when it's loud, when it's visible, when it's broadcasted. But healing never happens on stage. It happens behind the curtain, where no one is watching. There are wounds in your heart that only your soul understands. They don't need captions. They don't need filters. They don't need eyes that don't see beyond the surface. Pain is not validation. And when you make it public, you risk reducing it to content, to conversation, to something that people scroll past with a swipe of disinterest. Not everyone deserves access to your suffering, because not everyone will honor it. Some will question it. Some will compare it. Some will even mock it in the silence of their own insecurities. When you share your pain openly, you hand your story to people who were never meant to carry it, and in return, you carry the weight of their opinions instead of your own healing. Healing is not a performance. It's not linear. It's not poetic. It's messy. And it needs a safe space, without judgment, without interference, without noise. When you try to heal while explaining, you're doing too much talking and not enough listening. You're listening to reactions instead of your own heart. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is sit with your pain quietly. No status update. No sympathy request. Just you, your truth, and time. Because healing takes time, not timelines. And when you stop rushing to share your hurt, you start giving yourself permission to actually feel it. Let your scars be sacred, not symbolic. You don't need to prove how much you've endured to be valid. You don't need people to witness your breakdown to make your comeback meaningful. You just need to keep showing up for yourself. You need to treat your pain like a tender child, softly, gently, privately. Your vulnerability is a gift, but only when given to people who know how to hold it. Don't give your broken pieces to those who only want to look, not help. Don't open your wounds in rooms that only echo with ego. Speak where there is safety. Heal where there is hope. And remember, not every listening ear is a healing hand. There is healing in silence. In the stillness where no one watches, something shifts. When you are alone with your truth, you start to understand its roots. You begin to unravel the layers of pain that were hidden beneath layers of pretending. And you realize the real transformation happens when no one is clapping. Stop turning your pain into stories for strangers. Stop giving your trauma to timelines. You don't need everyone to know what broke you. You need to know how you're rebuilding. And that process is not always Instagrammable. It's not always beautiful, but it's always worth it. Sometimes people are curious, not compassionate. They ask not to help, but to hear. They listen not to heal, but to judge. And if you're not careful, you'll confuse attention with support. But support is silent. It shows up. It holds space. It doesn't need to be seen. Your healing journey isn't a public marathon. It's a private walk home to yourself. Don't invite the world to watch you stumble. Invite peace to walk beside you. Choose those who speak with kindness, not curiosity. And most importantly, choose to be kind to yourself. People might ask, why didn't you tell me? And your answer can be simple. Because I was too busy surviving. You don't owe anyone your breakdown. You don't owe anyone your darkest chapter. You owe yourself the chance to turn the page without noise. When you protect your pain, you protect your power. Not every emotion needs expression. Some need reflection. Some need solitude. Some need the sacred silence of your own presence to feel heard. Be that presence for yourself. It is okay to be quiet about what hurts. That silence doesn't make your pain smaller, it makes it yours. It gives you control. It allows you to decide who sees your wounds and who doesn't, and sometimes the right person is only you. You're allowed to be private with your pain. You're allowed to not share. You're allowed to heal in silence, away from screens, away from questions, away from curious eyes. And when you do, you'll discover a kind of peace that doesn't need permission to exist. Your moves are more powerful when they're silent. There is an undeniable force in quiet progress. When you move in silence, you move with intention. You are not trying to impress. You are trying to improve. You are not broadcasting your efforts. You are honoring them. Because growth isn't always loud, and progress doesn't always announce itself. It just becomes visible when the time is right. So many people lose their power by talking too much about what they're about to do. They speak their dreams so often that they begin to believe they've already achieved them. But speaking is not the same as doing. And the more you speak, the more pressure you invite, the more distraction you create, the more you drain the energy needed for the actual journey. When your focus shifts from execution to explanation, you start working for validation rather than transformation. You start needing praise before there's proof. You start chasing applause instead of alignment. And somewhere in the noise, your purpose gets lost. What once was about impact becomes about image. What once was a calling becomes a performance. The most powerful moves are the ones people don't see coming. The ones that grow underground like roots, slowly, quietly, firmly, until one day there's a tree standing where no one expected it. That is the beauty of silent work. It catches the world off guard, not because you were hiding, but because you were preparing. Silence gives you clarity. When you stop explaining your every step, you start listening to your inner compass. You hear your own rhythm, you trust your own direction, and without the noise of opinions, you begin to walk straighter, stronger, deeper. Because there's no confusion when the only voice you follow is your own. There is wisdom in withholding, not out of fear, but out of focus. You're not being secretive, you're being strategic. You're not afraid of people knowing. You're simply uninterested in proving. Because when you know where you're going, you don't need to justify why you're walking in silence. People will notice when the results arrive, and they'll ask, when did this happen? But they won't know about the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the quiet hustle behind closed doors. They won't see the tears, the trials, the tiny steps you took while no one was watching. And they don't need to, because your results will say everything your mouth never did. You don't have to post every step to prove you're progressing. Not everything valuable lives online. Your work, your growth, your movement, it's valid even when unseen. Let your discipline be your diary. Let your consistency be your confession. And let your life speak what your lips have kept sacred. Silent moves protect you from premature interference. When people don't know your plan, they can't sabotage it. They can't discourage what they don't see. They can't doubt what they're unaware of. And in that silence, you build not just a dream, but a fortress around it. Sometimes, the world gives more energy to your plans than you do, but in the wrong direction. They dissect, they debate, they discourage. And without realizing it, you start second-guessing what was once certain. But when you stop giving updates, you stop inviting unnecessary opinions. Your actions are louder than your announcements. Let your habits speak. Let your discipline shine. Let your excellence echo. You don't need to declare what you're becoming, just become it. And when the time comes, the world will see, without a single word from you, people will wonder why you stopped talking so much. Let them wonder. Let your silence confuse them. Let your focus disturb their comfort. Because while they were busy watching, you were busy working. And in the end, the work always wins. There is a quiet dignity in becoming, in evolving where no one claps, in rising when no one's looking, in succeeding without screaming. That kind of progress is not loud, but it is unshakable. Because it is built on truth, not trends, on consistency, not comments. Sometimes the greatest proof is presence, not the noise you make, but the energy you carry, the way you show up, the way you rise without permission. That's what real power looks like. It's calm, it's calculated, it's quiet, and it's unstoppable. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's energy being stored. It's greatness under construction. It's strength being shaped. And when it's ready, it won't need a drum roll. It will simply arrive, whole and radiant, as if it had always been there. Your relationships thrive in privacy. There's a kind of intimacy that only exists in silence, a kind of trust that grows stronger away from the spotlight. In a world obsessed with showcasing relationships, privacy becomes a sanctuary. It becomes the sacred soil where real connection takes root. Not every relationship needs an audience. Not every bond needs to be broadcasted. Some of the most powerful relationships are the ones nurtured in stillness. When love is loud, it sometimes becomes performance. It becomes something you prove, not something you feel. You pose to be seen, not to be present. You share to receive, not to give. And slowly, without realizing, the relationship begins to serve the world's expectations instead of your heart's truths. It becomes less about you and more about how others perceive you. Privacy doesn't mean secrecy, it means protection. You're not hiding the relationship, you're honoring it. You're keeping it in a space where it can breathe without pressure. Because the more people involved in your connection, the more noise you invite. And love doesn't grow in noise. It grows in quiet understanding, in small gestures, in silent promises. Let your love be yours. Not a statement, not a display. Just a truth that exists quietly between two souls who have chosen each other without needing the world's approval. Love doesn't become real when it's posted, it becomes real when it's felt. When it's lived in the moments no one sees, in the whispers no one hears. The most authentic relationships are not always photographed. They are not hashtagged. They are not captioned. They are lived in the ordinary, the everyday texts, the quiet support, the gentle understanding. And these are the moments that build a foundation no storm can shake, because they are built away from the winds of judgment. Privacy strengthens the bond. It allows trust to grow without interference. When no one else is involved, misunderstandings decrease, comparisons disappear, and the connection becomes clearer. You're not performing for an audience, you're relating to each other, heart to heart. Some things are too beautiful to be shared, not because they're secret, but because they're sacred. Your connection is not for public consumption. It's not for opinions or reactions. It's for comfort, for safety, for growth. And when you protect it, you allow it to blossom into something that's rooted in truth, not trends. Not everyone clapping for your relationship is happy for it. Some are clapping to get closer. Some are watching to wait for it to fall. And while your relationship doesn't have to fear others, it shouldn't be fed to them either. Starve the distractions. Feed the connection. That's how love survives in a noisy world. You don't owe the world updates on your relationship. You don't have to prove how strong it is. You don't need to announce every milestone. What matters is how you feel when no one's watching. What matters is whether your heart is at peace, not whether your feed is approved. Real relationships aren't about what's seen, they're about what's felt. And when you keep that space private, you allow your connection to breathe. You allow it to unfold naturally, without pressure, without needing to meet expectations that don't belong to you. The quiet moments matter more than the grand gestures. The support in times of struggle. The patience when words fail. The effort when life is heavy. These are not usually photographed, but they are the heartbeat of a lasting bond. And they flourish in the silence that privacy offers. Don't invite everyone into your sacred spaces. Some people come with noise, some come with judgment, some come with opinions that have no place in your love. Keep your relationship close, water it quietly, let it grow in peace, not under the spotlight of constant attention. Love doesn't need to be loud to be real. It doesn't need likes to be worthy. It needs time, it needs presence, it needs sincerity. These can't be captured in pixels, they are captured in eyes, in tone, in energy, and they are protected best when kept private. You are allowed to guard your heart without apology. You are allowed to love deeply without explanation. You are allowed to share less with the world and still feel everything more. This is not being distant, it's being intentional. Because the best connections are the ones that feel like home, not theater. In the end, let your relationship be your sanctuary, not your stage. Let it be the place where your soul rests, not performs. Let it be quiet, not because it's unsure, but because it's safe. And in that quiet, love will not just survive, it will thrive. Your peace begins where oversharing ends. There's a strange kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from telling too much. When you share every thought, every step, every change in your life, you unknowingly scatter pieces of yourself into places they were never meant to be. Your peace, your clarity, your stability begins to fade quietly, slowly, until one day you realize you feel drained without knowing why. That's the cost of oversharing. You see, not everyone is meant to be a witness to your becoming. Not every voice deserves access to your truth. The more people you invite into your personal space, the more opinions you collect. And opinions, especially the uninvited ones, are the fastest way to confuse a calm mind. They turn your certainty into questioning, your joy into self-doubt, your confidence into hesitation. When you talk too much about your life, you make your soul a marketplace open to everyone, owned by no one. People walk through it casually, judging, commenting, reacting, and leaving, while you are left behind trying to gather what was yours. Privacy is not secrecy, is ownership. It is the sacred act of saying, "This is mine." Not because I'm ashamed, but because I value it. There's a sacred silence that heals. A space where your thoughts don't need to be spoken to feel valid. A moment when your decisions are just yours, free from analysis or opinion. The fewer people you report to, the more free you become. Because oversharing is a subtle form of permission seeking. It's asking the world, do you approve of who I'm becoming? And often the answer is empty. You don't owe updates to anyone who doesn't hold your heart gently. Just because they ask doesn't mean you need to answer. Just because they watch doesn't mean they understand. Your life isn't a newsfeed, it's a soul in motion. And the most important parts of it deserve reverence, not reaction. Every time you overshare, you give away power. Power over your energy, power over your narrative, power over your next move. The more people know, the more they feel entitled to respond. And the more you let them in, the more you have to manage their noise. But when you keep your circle small and your words fewer, your focus becomes stronger, your path becomes clearer. You were not created to be understood by everyone. You were created to live your truth, not explain it. And peace does not come from being seen. It comes from being still. Still enough to listen to your intuition. Still enough to trust your direction. Still enough to move without announcing every step. Let your silence be your sanctuary. Not a place of hiding, but a place of alignment. A space where you can feel your feelings without performing them. A moment where you can change your mind without explanation. Because growth isn't always graceful and it doesn't need an audience to be real. When you stop oversharing, you start reclaiming your energy. Suddenly, you have more time to reflect instead of explain. More space to breathe instead of update. More freedom to choose instead of justify. And in that freedom, your peace finds a place to root itself deeply. It is not your job to be understood. It is your responsibility to be whole. And wholeness often requires solitude, stillness, privacy, not isolation, but intentional distance from the noise of too many voices, too many comments, too many watchers who never truly see. Your life is not a podcast. It's not a press release. It's a quiet masterpiece being painted one decision at a time. Some strokes are messy, some are divine, but they all belong to you. And not every stroke needs to be shown before the painting is finished. Let people wonder what you're up to. Let them question your silence. Let them imagine, assume, guess. You don't need to fill in the blanks for them. You're not a story that needs constant narration. You are a soul unfolding, and that unfolding deserves protection. Peace begins when you no longer feel the need to narrate your life as you live it, when you stop over-explaining, when you stop proving, when you stop seeking validation. Peace begins when your life becomes something you feel, not something you perform. There's a calm that comes with holding your own secrets, a strength in not having to say anything, a liberation in keeping your joy private, your pain sacred, your progress quiet. In that quiet, something divine is born: balance. And balance is where peace begins. So if you're tired, maybe you don't need rest. Maybe you just need quiet, not silence from others, but silence from yourself. The kind that says, I don't need to share this right now. I can just live it. I can just be. And in that stillness, you begin to return to yourself. At the end of the day, there comes a point in life where you no longer crave to be heard. You crave to be whole. Where you no longer wish to be seen, you wish to be centered. In that sacred shift, you stop sharing your every move, your every emotion, your every milestone, not because you have something to hide, but because you've finally understood the value of what's yours. Your dreams are no longer a topic for open debate. They are precious blueprints you guard with quiet commitment. Your pain is no longer a public declaration. It's a private conversation between you and the healing that is unfolding inside you. Your progress no longer walks with a megaphone, it walks with quiet purpose, knowing that what is real doesn't need to be repeated. Your relationships no longer perform for an audience. They breathe in the silence of sincerity where only two hearts matter. And your peace, it returns. Because with every piece of your life, you protect from oversharing. You make space for your soul to breathe freely again. This is not silence born of fear. This is silence born of strength. The strength to know you are enough even when no one is clapping. The strength to walk without updates, to cry without captions, to rise without announcing. This is the wisdom of living inwardly, deeply, fully. You do not need to explain your journey to the world in order to justify its worth. You do not owe your healing, your goals, or your love to those who haven't earned a place in your quiet moments. There is no peace in being constantly visible, but there is peace in being fully aligned with who you are, regardless of who knows it. So pause before you share, reflect before you speak. Ask yourself, does this need to be said? Or does this need to be felt? Because some things are more powerful when they're lived, not told. When you stop telling everyone what happens in your life, you begin to live it more fully. You begin to protect what matters. You begin to rise quietly and steadily into the person you were always meant to be. And the world, it will feel your growth even in your silence.